Paradiso, Canto 29, the ninth heaven, primum mobile, the angelic hierarchies, the creation, the nature, and the number of the angels.
When, by the ram and by the scales surmounted, both children of Latona make together a girdle of the earth's horizon line, as long as from the moment when the zenith holds them in equipoise, till from that girdle both free themselves by changing hemisphere. Only so long did Beatrice keep silent, a smile her face adorning, as she gazed intently on the point which vanquished me. She then began,
I tell, but do not ask, what thou art fain to hear, for I have seen it where every where and every when is fixed, not for gain of good unto himself, which is not possible, but that his splendour might in resplendency declare I am in his eternity, outside of time, out of all limits else, the eternal love, as pleased him, in new loves disclosed himself. Nor yet ere this did he remain inert, for neither after nor before occurred God's going to and fro upon these waters. Both form and matter, simple and conjoined, came into being which had no defect, even as 3 arrows from a 3-stringed bow, and as in glass, in amber, or in crystal a ray so shines, that from the time it comes till its completion is no interval. Thus from its Lord did that triform effect ray forth into its being all at once, without distinction as to its beginning. Order was concreate, and for the substances ordained. The highest in the world were those in whom activity was brought forth pure. Pure potentiality the lowest place assumed, and 'tween these two so strong a bond activity and potentiality conjoined, that never will it be unbound. Jerome, concerning angels, wrote for you that their creation was an age-long tract of time before the remnant world was made. But written is this truth in many places by writers of the Holy Ghost, and there thou'lt see it, if but carefully thou look. And reason, too, sees this to some extent, for it could not acknowledge that the motors could be so long deprived of their perfection. And now thou knowest where and when these loves created were, and how, hence in thy longing 3 ardours have already been extinguished. Nor, counting, would one reach as far as 20, as quickly as a portion of the angels disturbed the lowest of your elements. The rest remained, and with such great delight began the art which thou beholdest here, that never from their circling have they ceased. The fall's occasion was the cursed pride of him whom thou didst see oppressed by all the burdens of the world. Those whom thou here beholdest modest were, and recognized themselves as from that goodness sprung which apt had made them for such great intelligence. And therefore, by illuminating grace and by their merit, was their sight so raised, that now a full and steadfast will is theirs. Nor would I have thee doubt, but be assured that to receive God's grace is meritorious, according as affection opes to it. And now, concerning this consistory, much canst thou contemplate without more help, if thou hast apprehended well my words. But seeing that on earth throughout your schools men teach that such the angelic nature is, that it both understands, recalls, and wills, I'll further speak that thou the simple truth mayst see, which there below confounded is, because the doctrine taught equivocates. These substances, ere since the face of God first gladdened them, have not withdrawn their eyes therefrom, whence nothing is concealed. They have no vision which is interrupted, therefore, by objects new to them, and hence need not remember by divided thought. Folk, therefore, dream down there, though not asleep, some thinking that their words are true, some not. But greater is the latter's sin and shame. And ye down yonder follow not one path when ye philosophize, so much doth the love of show, and being famed for it, transport you. And yet with even less disdain is this endured up here, than when the Holy Scripture is set aside or turned to wrong account. No one considers there how much it costs to sow it in the world, or how much he, who humbly clings to it, gives pleasure here. Each strives to call attention to himself, making his own inventions. These are taught by preachers, while the gospel's voice is stilled. One says that while the Christ was suffering death, the moon turned back and interposed herself, and hence the sun's light failed to reach the earth. Others that of its own accord the light concealed itself, hence its eclipse affected Spaniards and Hindus as it did the Jews. Florence hath not so many Lapi and Bindi as fables such as these, which all year long are shouted from the pulpits everywhere. Hence the poor sheep who do not know return from pasture fed on wind, nor doth the fact that they see not that they are harmed excuse them. Christ did not say to his first company, Go and preach idle stories to the world, but gave them a foundation for the truth, and that alone found utterance from their lips. Therefore, when striving to enkindle faith, they use the gospel as their shield and lance. Men now go forth to preach with jests and tricks, And so, if but a hearty laugh is raised, the cowl puffs up, and nothing more is asked. But in its tail there nests such a bird, that if the crowd perceived it, it would see what that forgiveness is in which it trusts. Therefore such folly hath increased on earth, that without proof or other attestation, to any kind of promise men would flock. St. Anthony is fattening thus his pig, and others also fouler far than his by paying money void of coinage stamp. But since a great digression we have made, turn thine eyes backward to the straight road now, that thus our way be shortened with our time. This nature so exceedingly extends in number, that there never was or speech or mortal thought that could extend so far. And if thou look at that which is disclosed by Daniel, thou wilt see that in his thousands no well-determined number is revealed. The primal light, which rays out on it all, is in as many ways therein received, as are the lights wherewith it pairs itself. Hence, since affection follows on the act which understands, love's sweetness is therein burning or warm in different degrees. And see how exceeding high and broad is that eternal worth, which makes itself so many mirrors whereupon it breaks, while in itself, as erst, remaining one. End of Paradiso, Canto 29. Angels and the Blessed, the River of Light, the Mystic Rose, the Throne of Henry VII.
The 6th hour glows perhaps 6,000 miles away from us, and now our world inclines its shadow to a near-by level bed. Mid-heaven the while, which lies so deep above us, is growing such, that now and then a star is lost to our perception here below. Till, as the brightest handmaid of the sun advances further, star by star, the sky, even to the fairest, closes to our view. Not otherwise the triumph, which forever plays round about the point which vanquished me, and seems contained by what itself contains, little by little faded from my sight. My seeing nothing, therefore, and my love forced me to look again at Beatrice. If what has hitherto been said of her were all included in a single praise, but little would it serve my present turn. The beauty which I then beheld transcends not us alone, but truly I believe its Maker only can enjoy it all. And herewith I confess myself o'erwhelmed more than a tragic or a comic poet was ever by a crisis in his theme. For as the sun the sight that trembles most, so the remembrance of her lovely smile deprives my memory of its very self. From the first day when I beheld her face in this life, till this present sight of it, I've never ceased from following her in song, but now must my pursuit desist from tracing her beauty's progress further in my verse, as at his utmost every artist must. Such, as I leave her to a louder cry than that of mine own trump, which draweth now its arduous matter to its closing, she, with a quick leader's mien and voice, resumed.
We now have issued from the greatest body into the heaven, which is itself pure light. Light intellectual, which is full of love, love of true goodness, which is full of joy, joy which transcendeth every kind of pleasure. Here both the soldieries of paradise shalt thou behold, and one in that array, which at the final judgment thou shalt see.
Like a quick lightning flash, which scatters so the visual faculties that it prevents the eyes reacting to the brightest objects. Even so a living light around me shone, and left me swathed about by such a veil of its effulgence, that I lost my sight.
The love which calms this last heaven always welcomes into its midst by greetings such as these, and thus adapts the candle to the flame.
No sooner had these brief few words of hers attained mine inner ear, than I perceived that I was being raised above my powers. Hence with new sight I so rekindled me, that there cannot exist so bright a light, that now mine eyes could not endure to see it. Light in a river's form I then beheld, which glowed refulgently between two banks, adorned with wondrous hues of early spring. And from this river issued living sparks, which settled everywhere among the flowers, and looked like rubies set in gold. And then, as if intoxicated by its odours, into the wondrous river plunged again, another coming out, if one went in.
The deep desire which now inflameth thee and urges thee to know what thou art seeing, the better pleases me, the more it grows. But of this water it behooves thee drink, before so great a thirst as thine is slaked.
So said to me the sunlight of mine eyes.
The river, and the topaz lights which come and go,
She added,
and the smiling grass are prefaces foreshadowing their truth. Not that imperfect in themselves they are, but that deficiency exists in thee, because thy sight is not yet strong enough.
There is no little child that turns its face so quickly toward its milk, on waking up much later than hath been its wont, as I, to make far better mirrors of mine eyes, leaned over toward the stream, which only flows that we therein may be the better made. Soon as mine eyelids' eaves had drunk of it, it seemed to me transformed from long to round. And then, like folk who under masks have been, and different seem from what they were before, when once divested of the alien looks, wherein their self had disappeared, even so the flowers and sparks had changed themselves for me into a feast far greater, so that clearly I now beheld both courts of heaven revealed. O splendour of my God, whereby I saw the exalted triumph of the realm of truth, give me the power to tell what I perceived. There is a light up yonder, which allows its Maker to be seen by every creature which only hath its peace in seeing him. And in a circle's form it spreadeth out to such extent, that its circumference would be too broad a girdle for the sun. Its whole appearance from a ray proceeds, reflected from the summit of the first moved sphere, which from it takes its life and potency. And as within the water at its base a hill reflects itself, as if to see its slopes adorned, when rich with leaves and flowers; thus, ranged above, and all around the light, mirrored on o'er 1,000 tiers, I saw all that of us have yet returned up there. And if the lowest row within itself gathers so great a light, how great must be this rose's width in its remotest petals! Nor did my vision of its breadth or height lose itself in them, but embraced the whole extent and inmost nature of this joy. There near nor far, nor add nor take away. For there where God unmediated rules, in no way doth the natural law obtain. Into the yellow of the eternal rose, which outward spreads in tears, whose fragrance praises the sun which makes an everlasting spring, was I, like one who, fain to speak, keeps silent, led on by Beatrice, who said to me,
Behold how vast the white-robed convent is. Behold how wide the circuit of our town. Behold our benches so completely filled, that few are now the people longed for here. On that great seat whereon thine eyes are fixed by reason of the crown which rests there now, or ere thou sup at this our wedding feast, shall sit the soul, august to be below, of that great Henry who shall come to set Italia straight, ere she shall be prepared. The blinding greed which now bewitches you hath made you mortals like a child, who, though he die of hunger, drives his nurse away. And in the sacred forum such a one shall prefect be, that he'll not go one road with him, in open or covert ways. But in his holy office he will not be long endured by God, for hurled he'll be where Simon Magus is for his reward. And deeper down shall thrust Alagna's man. End of Paradiso, Canto 30. Section 98 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 31. The Empyrean. God. The Angels and the Blessed. Saint Bernard. Dante's last words with Beatrice. The glory of Mary.
In semblance, therefore, of a pure white rose, the sacred soldiery with which his blood Christ made his bride, revealed itself to me. Meanwhile the other host, which flying sees the glory of him who wins its love, and sings the goodness which had made them all so great, was like a swarm of bees, which now enflowers itself, and now returns to where its toil is sweetened, ever coming down to enter the spacious flower, which with so many leaves adorns itself, and reascending thence to where its love for ever makes his home. The faces of them all were living flames, their wings were golden, and the rest so white, that never is such whiteness reached by snow. When down into the flower they came, they spread from bench to bench the peace and ardent love, which by the fanning of their sides they won. Nor did so vast a host of flying forms between the flower and that which o'er it lies, hinder the sight, or dim the splendour seen. Because the light divine so penetrates the universe, according to its worth, that nought can be an obstacle thereto. And this secure and joyous kingdom, thronged by people of the ages old and new, wholly on one mark set its looks and love. O trinal light, that in a single star sparkling before their eyes dost so appease them, look down upon our tempest here below. If the barbarians, coming from a region above which Elice looms every day, while circling with the sun who is her joy, on seeing Rome and all her lofty buildings, what time the Lateran rose eminent o'er every mortal thing, were wonder-struck. How overwhelmed with awe must I have been, I, who from human things to things divine, from time into eternity had come, from Florence, to a people just and sane. Because of this indeed, and of my joy, it pleased me to be mute and hear no sound. And even as in the temple of his vow, when hoping to describe it all some day, a pilgrim looks around him and is cheered, even so, while wandering through the living light, I turned mine eyes on all the graded ranks, circling now up, now down, and now around. There love-persuasive faces I beheld, decked by another's light and their own smiles, and gestures fraught with grace and dignity. My look now as a whole had comprehended the general form of paradise, but had not yet settled especially on any part. And I was longing with rekindled wish to ask my lady as to many things concerning which my mind was in suspense, though one thing I had meant, another answered. Thinking to look at Beatrice, an elder I saw arrayed as other glorious folk. His eyes and cheeks were all suffused with joy and kindliness, and such his pious mien, as fitting is a father's tenderness. Hence, where is she? I said impulsively, and he,
To bring thy longing to an end was I by Beatrice from mine own place withdrawn. And if upon the highest ranks third round thou look, thou shalt again behold her enthroned where her deserts allotted her.
Without reply I lifted up mine eyes, and saw her, as reflecting from herself the eternal rays, she made herself a crown. Not from the tract whence highest thunder's peal is any mortal eye so far removed from whatsoever sea it fathoms most, as Beatrice was distant from mine eyes. But naught was that to me, because her face came down to me unblurred by aught between. O Lady, thou in whom my hope is strong, and who for my salvation didst endure to leave the traces of thy feet in hell, I recognize the virtue and the grace of all the many things which I have seen, as coming from thy power and kindliness. From slavery to freedom thou hast drawn me in every way, and over every path, within thy power to achieve that end. Guard thou in me the fruitage of thy bounty, that thus my soul, restored to health by thee, may, when it leaves my body, please thee still. I thus implored, and she, though so far off she seemed, looked down at me and smiled. Then to the eternal fount she turned again. Thereat the holy elder said,
That thou mayst bring thy journey to its perfect end, for which both prayers and holy love have sent me, hover about this garden with thine eyes, for to have seen it will prepare thy look to rise still higher through the ray divine. The Queen of Heaven, for whom I wholly burn with love, will grant us this and very grace, for I her faithful servant Bernard am.
As he who from Croatia comes, perchance, to look at our Veronica, and who, because of its old fame, is never sated, but says in thought, as long as it is shown, My Lord, Christ Jesus, God in very truth, was then your countenance like unto this? Even such was I, as on the living love I gazed on him, who in this world received a taste in contemplation of that peace.
This glad existence, Son of Grace,
He then began.
will not be known to thee, if fixed at this low level only are thine eyes. Look at the circles, to the most remote, till yonder thou behold that Queen enthroned, to whom devoutly subject is this realm.
I raised mine eyes, and as at early morn the horizon's eastern parts excel in light the regions where the sun is setting, so, as with mine eyes from vale to mount I moved, I saw a region at the utmost verge vanquish in light all other parts before me. And as the skies, where one awaits the car which Phaeton badly drove, more brightly gleam, while pale the light on either side becomes, so likewise brilliant in the middle loomed that peaceful oriflamme, and on each side the fire in equal measure burned less bright. And clustered there with wings outspread I saw more than 1,000 angels jubilant, and each distinct in splendour and in speed, while smiling down upon their sports and songs a beauty I beheld, who was the joy within the eyes of all the other saints. And even if I in utterance were as rich as in imagination, I'd not dare attempt to tell the least of its delight. When Bernard saw mine eyes intently fixed upon the object of his ardent love, he turned to it his own with such affection, that mine more eager grew to look again.
End of Paradiso, Canto 31. Paradiso, Canto 32. The Empyrean, God, the Angels and the Blessed, the Order of the Rose, the Blessed Children, the Great Patricians.
Intent on his delight, that contemplator the office of a teacher took unasked, and thereupon began these holy words.
The one so beautiful at Mary's feet is she who opened and who made the wound, which Mary closed again, and then anointed. In the order which up there the third seats make, Rachel beneath her sits with Beatrice, as thou perceivest, Sarah, Rebecca, Judith, and she who was that singer's ancestress, who said when he was grieving for his sin, "Have mercy on me." Thou canst thus behold downward from rank to rank, as each I name, and through the rows decline from leaf to leaf. Descending from the seventh row of seats, even as above it, Hebrew women follow, dividing all the tresses of the flower. For in accordance with the attitude their faith assumed toward Christ, these women form the wall which separates the sacred steps. On this side, where full bloomed the flower is, complete with all its leaves, are seated those who in the Christ that was to come believed, and on the other, where the semicircles are interrupted by still vacant seats, are those who face toward Christ already come. And as on this side here the glorious throne of heaven's own Lady, and the other seats beneath it such a great partition make, so opposite the seat of that great John, who, ever holy, underwent the desert and martyrdom, and then 2 years in Hades, while Francis, Benedict, and Augustine beneath him were decreed to form the line with others down to here, from round to round. And now behold how great God's foresight is, for each of these 2 aspects of the faith will fill this garden to the same extent. And know that downward from the row of seats which midway separates the 2 divisions, no one is seated for his own deserts, but for another's, under fixed conditions. For all of these are spirits who were freed before they had the power to really choose. This by their faces thou canst well perceive, and by their childish voices furthermore, if, looking at them well, thou listen too. Thou doubtest now, and doubting thou art silent, but I will set thee free from that strong bond wherein thy subtle thoughts are holding thee. Within the ample nature of this realm, nothing can any more occur by chance, than either sadness, thirst, or hunger can. For in accordance with eternal law is settled all thou seest, so that here close fitting to the finger is the ring. These people, therefore, who before their time have reached true life, are not without good cause more excellent or less among themselves. The King, through whom this kingdom finds repose in such delight and love, that no one's will is bold enough to long for any greater, creating all minds in his own glad sight, as him it pleases, dowers each with grace in diverse ways. Here let the fact suffice. And this is clearly and expressly marked for you in Holy Scripture, by those twins who, in their mother, had their wrath aroused. According to the color of the hair of that grace, therefore, must the light supreme be worthily accorded as a crown. Without deserving aught, then, for their deeds, are these to different grades assigned, which differ in their innate keen-sightedness alone. The faith of parents only was, indeed, with innocence, enough for their salvation throughout the centuries of early times. Then, when the
Paradiso, Canto 33. The Empyrean, God, St. Bernard's Prayer to Mary, the Vision of God, Ultimate Salvation.
O Virgin Mother, daughter of thy Son, humbler and loftier than any creature, eternal counsel's predetermined goal, thou art the one that such nobility didst lend to human nature, that its Maker scorned not to make himself what he had made. Within thy womb rekindled was the love, through whose warm influence in the eternal peace this flower hath blossomed thus. Here unto us thou art a noonday torch of charity, and down below 'mong mortal men thou art a living fount of hope. Lady, so great thou art, and hast such worth, that one who longs for grace, and unto thee hath not recourse, wingless would wish to have his longing fly. Not only doth thy kindliness give help to him that asketh it, but many times it freely runs ahead of his request. In thee is mercy, pity is in thee magnificence, and all there is of goodness in a creature meets in thee. Now doth this man, who from the lowest drain of the universe hath one by one beheld, as far as here, the forms of spirit life, beseech thee of thy grace for so much strength that with his eyes he may uplift himself toward ultimate salvation higher still. And I, who never for mine own sight burned more than I do for his, offer thee all my prayers, and pray that they be not too poor, that thou with thy prayers so dissolve each cloud of his mortality, that unto him the highest pleasure may unfold itself. And furthermore, I pray to thee, O Queen, who canst whate'er thou wilt, that after such a sight thou keep all his affections sound. His human promptings let thy care defeat. See with how many blessed ones Beatrice is clasping for my prayers her hands to thee.
The eyes beloved and revered by God, intent on him who prayed, revealed to us how grateful unto her are earnest prayers. Thence they addressed them to the eternal light, wherein it may not be believed the eye of any creature finds so clear a way. And I, who to the end of all desires was drawing near, within me, as I ought, brought to its goal the ardour of desire. Bernard was smiling, and was making signs for me to look on high, but as he wished, I was already of mine own accord, because my sight, as purer it became, was penetrating more and more the radiance of that high light, which of itself is true. From this time onward greater was my sight than is our speech, which yields to such a vision, and memory also yields to such excess. And such as he who seeth in a dream, and after it the imprinted feeling stays, while all the rest returns not to his mind, even such am I. For almost wholly fades my vision, yet the sweetness which was born of it is dripping still into my heart. Even thus the snow is in the sun dissolved, even thus the Sibyl's oracles, inscribed on flying leaves, were lost adown the wind. O light supreme, that dost uplift thyself so far from mortal thought, relend my mind a little of what thou didst seem to be, and cause my tongue to be so powerful, that of thy glory it may leave at least a spark unto the people still to come. For to my memory if it but a while return, and speak a little in these lines, more of thy victory will be conceived. I think the keenness of the living ray which I endured would have confounded me, if from it I had turned away mine eyes. And I recall that I, because of this, the bolder was to bear it, till I made my vision one with value infinite. O the abundant grace whereby I dared to pierce the light eternal with my gaze, until I had therein exhausted sight. I saw that far within its depths there lies, by love together in one volume bound, that which in leaves lies scattered through the world. Substance and accident, and modes thereof, fused as it were in such a way that whereof I speak is but one simple light. This union's general form I think I saw, since saying so I feel that I the more rejoice. Of more forgetfulness for me one moment is, than centuries 25 are for the enterprise which once caused Neptune to wonder at the shadow Argo cast. My mind, thus wholly in suspense, was gazing steadfast and motionless, and all intent, and gazing grew enkindled more and more. Such in that light doth one at last become, that one can never possibly consent to turn therefrom for any other sight, because the good, which is the will's real object, is therein wholly gathered, and, outside, that is defective which is perfect there. Even as to what I do remember, mine will now be shorter than an infant's speech, who at the breast still bathes his tongue, 'Twas not that there was other than a simple semblance within the living light wherein I gazed, which always is what it hath been before. But through my sight, which in me, as I looked, was gathering strength, because I changed, one sole appearance underwent a change for me. Within the lofty light's profound and clear subsistence there appeared to me 3 rings, of threefold colour and of one content. And one, as rainbow is by rainbow, seemed reflected by the other, while the third seemed like a fire breathed equally from both. O how to my conception short and weak is speech! And this, to what I saw, is such, that it is not enough to call it small. O light eternal, that alone dost dwell within thyself, alone dost understand thyself, and love and smile upon thyself, self-understanding and self-understood. That circle which appeared to be conceived within thyself as a reflected light, when somewhat contemplated by mine eyes, within itself, of its own very colour, to me seemed painted with our human form, whence wholly set upon it was my gaze. Like the geometer who gives himself wholly to measuring the circle, nor by thinking finds the principle he needs, even such was I at that new sight. I wished to see how to the ring the image there conformed itself, and found therein a place. But mine own wings were not enough for this. Had not my mind been smitten by a flash of light, wherein what it was willing came? Here power failed my high imagining, but like a smoothly moving wheel, that love was now resolving my desire and will, which moves the sun and all the other stars.
End of Paradiso, Canto 33. End of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon.